Hello and welcome back to the Pitch Side podcast. I'm your host, the HOD of the PSP. Like, share, comment on the YouTube version of the video, and subscribe to the YouTube channel. Enable notifications to receive all the updates from these episodes of the podcast and other content on the channel. Follow us on social media and listen on any podcast listening platform available. You're welcome. Before we kick things off with the weekend preview and we start looking at the action from the weekend in the European top leagues, let's look at the action from yesterday on Thursday, of course, in the Europa League, the Conference League, and there was some rescheduled matches in the Premier League. Let's start with the Europa League. 5 matches took place yesterday, of course. 2 played on Wednesday, as we mentioned. It was Frankfurt beating Betis 2-1 away, and Lyon beating Porto 1-0 away. On Thursday, 5 more matches were played. Of course, as we mentioned, Leipzig didn't play Spartak Moscow, and they got an automatic qualification to the next round because of the whole sanctions on Russia. Sevilla defeated West Ham United at home in Sevilla, of course, 1-0. It was a tight game. Almost as you expected between these two sides. I mean, West Ham are not exactly the side that are overtly offensive, as well as Sevilla not being a side that is flamboyantly attacking as well. I tell you another match which was Atalanta versus Bayer Leverkusen. It was a very open match. Opposite to that one, it ended 3-2 for Atalanta, who were leading 3-1, of course, and Moussa Diaby made it 3-2 and gave Leverkusen a lifeline out of this first leg, of course, leaving all things to play in the second leg. Barcelona were unlucky at the Camp Nou. They were basically playing alone against Galatasaray. They drawn goalless, of course. They were dominating the game as we'd expect at the moment. They created loads of chances, but the finishing was not really there for them. Rangers defeated Red Star Belgrade 3-0, basically putting one foot in the next round. Sporting Praha defeated Monaco 2-0 at home, which is a good result as well for them leading into the second leg. And in the Premier League, of course, the 4 matches that were played, Chelsea defeated Norwich City 3-1. Obviously, nothing would really matter in the grand scheme of things because the whole situation of the club is much bigger than just the football at the moment. But at least it's a good detraction as far as this victory is concerned. Southampton lost to Newcastle United at home at 2-1. Wolverhampton defeated Watford 4-0, and Leeds United continued their free fall, losing at home to Aston Villa 3-0. Let's start now our weekend preview, and as usual, kick things off with the Premier League, and it kicks with a very tricky match for Liverpool away from home to Brighton and Hove Albion. Brentford play Burnley, that's on Saturday. Man United play Tottenham, of course, big game on Saturday. On Sunday, it is Chelsea versus Newcastle, Everton versus Wolverhampton, Leeds versus Norwich, Southampton versus Watford, West Ham versus Aston Villa, Arsenal playing Leicester City, and on Monday it is Crystal Palace versus Manchester City. Of course, we're going to focus on a couple of games here. First of all, obviously, Liverpool versus Brighton Hove Albion. As we mentioned, it's a big game for Liverpool, of course, to catch up on Manchester City, to put to give City some sort of thinking to do before their game against Crystal Palace. Obviously, City play on Monday. 3 points the gap will become if Liverpool defeat Brighton, which, I mean, Brighton are always a tricky opponent for Liverpool. In the last few years or so, it has been a really kind of rough fixture for Liverpool. Since I think 2018, when they defeated them 4-0, every match against Brighton since then has been really uncomfortable for Liverpool and really hard to beat. I mean, they drawn against them at Anfield, in just last October, 2-2 in a really crazy game. They drawn against them at home back in 2020. They defeated them Anfield 1-0, just in February last year. So it's a really tricky fixture always for Liverpool. And with the problems that they have at the moment defensively, I mean, they don't concede a lot, but I think it looks like in every game they could concede a lot because there is so much space in the back behind Alexander-Arnold. Van Dijk is not performing at his very best as usual, and it doesn't look like Liverpool are really being solid defensively as you'd expect them to be, albeit they're still very good overall. But they have, I think, the momentum into this one. Brighton are not exactly enjoying the best run of their life. 4 losses on the spin now, and of course including 2 losses away from home. And 2 losses at home against Aston Villa and Burnley, which is not really a good indication for Brighton Hove Albion and what's to come. But they're still really a good side. They're not in a threat of relegation anytime soon. It looks like they're going to be safe for the season. But obviously, 4 losses on the spin will really make the difference between them finishing at, say, 14th or 15th and finishing at a better position like 9th or 8th, which is, again, a much more dignifiable position on the table. But I think Liverpool will have what it takes, I think, to win this one. Brentford against Burnley, this should be a pretty, gritty one, but I think Brentford could win this one. And then, of course, we talk about the other games on Sunday, then we go back to the United-Tottenham just a moment. Chelsea-Newcastle, I think, again, everything about the football, the match itself, doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things, albeit Chelsea still need the result, footballing-wise, but obviously the whole talk is going to be about selling the club, how the club is going to be ran at the moment, how it's going to be functioning with the license from the government and all of that. And Chelsea at the moment, they're picking up wins on the pitch, but I think they're losing so much on the pitch and there is so much drama off the pitch for Chelsea that I don't think the focus will be exactly 100% on this one. And Thomas Tuchel knows it because he's been annoyed about it. Every press conference that he makes, he's been annoyed about the amount of questions he gets about off-field situations and the ownership and all of that since the whole war started. Everton, free fall, I think, for them at the moment. They seem to be going straight down the barrel towards relegation. They're 1 point off Burnley, but obviously they have like 3 games in hand, so you maybe say they can survive. But I think the way they look, particularly against Spurs last Monday, losing 4-0, losing 5-0 in fact, in a really disappointing manner. The defence was absolutely shambolic. You don't really, trust Frank Lampard to be able to give Everton the chances to survive in the league this season. Wolverhampton, who turned things around after a couple of bad results, they managed to defeat Watford 4-0. I think the perfect opponent and the perfect result for them. 4-0 against Watford at home it was in yesterday, after 3 losses against side that they West Ham and Arsenal probably fine, they play for top 4 spots and all of that, but I think Crystal Palace at home is an unforgivable one, because at least against West Ham and Arsenal they lost away from home. Leeds United against Norwich City, a battle between 2 free-falling sides. Leeds United continuing to be the weakest defence in the Premier League by a margin. It's the weakest defence versus the second weakest defence, so naturally you'd expect a lot of goals, but I think they will be tight against each other because they would want both, they want point, particularly Leeds, I would say, who would want to avoid any kind of mathematics at the end of the season. Southampton against Watford, I would say this is a home game where Southampton should be winning and should have the advantage in this one. West Ham, Aston Villa, a very interesting game as well. West Ham will need the points to still catch up to Arsenal at 4th, who really have the advantage. And speaking of Arsenal, they play against Leicester City at home, and albeit Leicester City have recovered in the last couple of weeks, of course, they qualified, or they beat Stade Rennes to 1 in the Conference League, and they won a couple of games in the Premier League, but I think they haven't recovered enough to beat Arsenal, who are in a really good form at the moment. The Gunners winning 4 of the last 5 Premier League games. Of course, they still have a couple of games important against Chelsea and against Liverpool, so those 2 games might really be the difference in how they will finish the season in top 4 or not, but I think the advantage is for Arsenal, in my opinion. Crystal Palace versus Man City, I don't really think the discussion will be too much about this game, because I think City have the advantage. They just qualified in the Champions League, they rested all their players. I think it will be 3 points for City unless something miraculous happens. Back now to the big game, Manchester United versus Spurs. This is a game where United can say that the season probably hinges on this game and their game against Atletico Madrid in the Champions League. They were eliminated out of both cups. You know, I mean, they seem to be far behind the pack in terms of Champions League football in the Premier League, in terms of getting top 4 spots. They look really bad at the moment. The loss against Man City in the derby last week only aggravated the situation. There's no rhythm or reason to what United are doing at the moment. It's just the fact that they're trying to throw everything at the wall and seeing what stick. And there is some positives in United during the Ralf Rangnick era, but I think the negatives outweighed them. Not just because on the field they look bad most of the time, but also off the field. The reports and the sort of the speculations about the fights amongst the players, the problems about captaincy and what have you, and players not being satisfied with Rangnick, I think affected a lot of what United have done. And the last debacle and the latest debacle in the derby about Cristiano Ronaldo not being involved in the squad and what have you created a lot of drama also reading into this one. And it's a hard month for United. It's a really hard month for Manchester United in terms of schedule. You look at this side and the next couple of games that they have. They face United, they face Spurs, they face Atletico Madrid in the Champions League. Then they have Leicester City, then they have Everton. I think until the game against Norwich City, which is going to be in like mid-April, I think that is where United will have the time to rest, and that they will have the time to focus and probably rethink it again. But until then, it doesn't look like the next month of games will be easy for them, starting with that game against City and continuing to the game against Spurs, who are not exactly on the greatest run of form, but I think they look a little bit more solid than United would. They have a couple of games in hand as well, so they could really take advantage of the situation, and they could absolutely have the opportunity to embarrass Manchester United in this game. The standings for the Premier League at the moment, of course, before heading into this one: Man City with 69 points, Liverpool 63, Chelsea 56, Arsenal 48, Man United 47, 45 for West Ham and Spurs, 43 for Wolverhampton, 36 for Aston Villa, 35 for Southampton, 33 for Crystal Palace, Leicester and Brighton, 31 for Newcastle, 27 for Brentford, 23 for Leeds, 22 for Everton, 21 for Burnley, Watford with 19, and Norwich 17 at the bottom of the table. To Spain, and it is round 28 of La Liga as well, and we're going to be focusing about the European sides in this one, starting from Atletico Madrid, who play against Manchester United, of course, and they have a game against Cadiz on Friday. I think on paper there should be 3 points for Atletico Madrid. Looking for the momentum before the game against Manchester United away from home. Obviously a game where I think it feels like the first leg of that one against United really should have been theirs for the taking, but obviously they ended up drawing that game on the one mistake they only made in that tie. Back to the league, I think they had a great form since then. They won 3 games on the spin, and with impressive results as well. Like when you beat a side like Real Betis, who's been so good this season, 3-1 away from home, when you get a couple of good clean sheets against sides like Celta Vigo and Osasuna, it's really a good sign. I think that things are going on the right way. But the question is it too little too late from Atletico Madrid? Like, is this surge going to end somewhere or sometime soon, before this game against Man United, or after it, or against other opponents in La Liga? Nobody knows. But certainly what we know at the moment, that Atletico Madrid are looking on the up, and of course this game against Cadiz might be the perfect preparation for the game against Manchester United in terms of getting a win and really motivating the players heading into a game at Old Trafford, which I think is no disadvantage anymore going to Old Trafford really against Man United. If you saw United play this season, it's no disadvantage for Atletico going to Old Trafford and playing there. They can still win and get that tie. But obviously, as far as the game against Cadiz is concerned, they need to get the 3 points and just, don't think about this. Of course, they will be up to third momentarily if they defeat Cadiz. On Saturday, action starts with Levante playing against Espanyol, Granada hosting Elche, Villarreal playing Celta Vigo. That's a very tasty game. Getafe versus Valencia. And on Sunday, both Real Madrid or both Barcelona and Sevilla are in action. Real Madrid are on Monday. Rayo Vallecano play against Sevilla. Sevilla, of course, coming from the victory against West Ham in the Europa League. I think their league bid is over. If you ask me, really, I don't see them as title contenders anymore. I think they've been relegated of that position a couple of weeks ago. They kept missing opportunities to win games that should have been there for the taking, I think, for them. The draw against Deportivo Alaves, draw against Espanyol, draws against Osasuna and Celta Vigo and Valencia. I mean, it's 5 draws out of the last 8 games, which is really ridiculous as far as Sevilla is concerned. You know, really dropping too many points. I mean, again, out of the last 24, they drop in, 15 or 16 points. Is a really hard proposition as far as Sevilla is concerned. Their season has been good for the most part, but I think they slipped at the wrong moments and they dropped points at the wrong moments, despite being consistently solid, particularly at the back, the strongest defense in La Liga with 18 goals, but definitely doesn't help when you can't score a lot and when you were unable to score in a lot of games. With 39 goals for Sevilla in the attack. Like the 4 sides surrounding them in the table, like Real Madrid scored 56, Barcelona scored 48, Atletico scored 50. Atletico Madrid scored 50 goals, and Real Betis, of course, 49 goals in the table. So Sevilla's problem, I think, is attacking, it seems, which doesn't get them points. If you don't score, you really don't win. At the very least, you will draw the game. A very tasty one at the Benito Villamarin. Real Betis playing against Athletic Club, which is a replay from the, which is going to be a replay or a preview, let's say, of the final of the Copa del Rey. Of course, between the two sides, they will face each other in the Copa del Rey final. It's going to be a tasty game. Real Betis are going to be looking to recapture their place in the top 4 after they lost it last week after losing to Atletico Madrid. And of course, the last couple of results they had, of course, were pretty negative. Of course, losing to Atletico and Sevilla, which are pretty critical losses, not just because one is a derby and one is Atletico Madrid, but also because they're 2 direct rivals on the table, and particularly Atletico, who leaped over them in the table after defeating them at the Benito Villamarin. The Real Sociedad plays against Deportivo Alaves on Saturday, of course, a game where Real Sociedad will be looking to get another 3 points on their books and try to stay close to that top 4 race as well. They are involved in it. And of course, Barcelona host Osasuna on Sunday. I mean, I'm not going to say this is 3 points in the back of Barcelona, because just as recently they almost lost it to Elche. They almost drawn against Elche, and also they almost lost. And they sort of dropped a couple of points, figuratively speaking, drawing goalless against Galatasaray in the Europa League. So they can have the odd off game, even with the good period that they're in at the moment. But the fact is, it's advantage Barcelona, it's favourite Barcelona, and I think against Osasuna, a side that is not exactly as solid defensively as you'd expect, albeit 31 goals is pretty good number, considering that Atletico Madrid at 4th conceded 35. But Osasuna are a side that could give Barcelona some troubles, of course, and I think they did give them that in the first leg, because they drawn 2-2. That was in Pamplona back in December last year. I think Barcelona improved since then, but is that improvement going to be enough to annihilate Osasuna? They need that result, I think, before the second leg of the Europa League game. And then, of course, Real Madrid playing on Monday against Mallorca away from home, and after a ridiculous comeback against PSG, an unbelievable game, particularly in that second half against PSG. I mean, it wasn't the best of games, but against PSG in the second half, they really were phenomenal, particularly the last half an hour, and particularly Karim Benzema. I don't think there's anything stopping them from winning the 35th Liga, and I think against Mallorca, they will be really, really favourites. Of course, Mallorca 16th at the table. I don't think that there is any result in the world more logical at the moment as far as Real Madrid beating Mallorca, who lost 4 on the spin, of course, and only won 2 of the last 7, and lost the other 5. So it's definitely a game where Real Madrid have the complete and utter advantage in this one. The table of La Liga, of course, Real Madrid 63 points, Sevilla with 55. Barcelona 48 points, as well as Atletico Madrid, 46 for Betis, 44 for Real Sociedad, 42 for Villarreal, 40 for Athletic Bilbao, 36 for Valencia, 35 for Celta and Osasuna, 32 for Espanyol, 31 for Vallecano, 29 for Elche, 27 for Getafe, Mallorca 26, 25 for Granada, Cadiz 24, Alaves 22, and Levante 18 at the bottom. To Germany and round 26 of the Bundesliga. Of course, one game is not going to be played, is going to be cancelled, which is Augsburg versus Mainz because of a COVID outbreak amongst the Mainz squad. That's why the game against Dortmund was cancelled last week. The week and the round kicks off with Hoffenheim versus Bayern Munich away from home. Bayern Munich, I think they got a big shot of adrenaline after that victory against Salzburg in the Champions League 7-1. It came at the right time, I think, because any other result would really cast a doubt over the side and over the abilities of Julian Nagelsmann of leading Bayern to success, which obviously have been a big talking point over the last, let's say, month or so after the series of not necessarily bad results, but let's say bad performances, let's put it this way, because in terms of results, like Bayern lost only once out of the last 7, but I think the performances they've been putting, particularly in the league, the last couple of games, they haven't been convincing against Rote Fürth, even in the 4-1 win. The victory against Frankfurt was really hard, and then you have the draw against Leverkusen, but definitely the draw against Salzburg, I think, fixed a bit of the relation between the fans, maybe, and Julian Nagelsmann. It gave them a little bit of hope that Bayern are back on the right track for the season, but still there's still problems persisting. I think defensively Bayern are still fragile, which has been consistent for the last, let's say, 3 or 4 years. But definitely the attacking firepower that Bayern have, I think, more than makes up for that. It's a tricky game against a side that's playing for top 4 positions. They are 4th at the table with 43 points, and they're one of the most rugged side in the Premier League and in the Bundesliga, sorry, and they can really be tight. They can really be absolutely stern at the back. They play 3 at the back, similar to Bayern, but I think it's more of their usual formation that when Bayern are doing, which is playing 3 at the back because Alphonso Davies is not there, and you can't really play Benjamin Pavard as a right back. You expect Nagelsmann to stay true to the formation, you expect him to stay loyal to the 3-5-2, and you expect him really to stay loyal to his principles that he's playing with at the moment, continuing to play with Musiala potentially at centre mid alongside Joshua Kimmich, and playing with all the wingers in the world up front, playing with Gnabry, Koeman and Sané, all of them in one lineup, which is dangerous, and it's a double-edged weapon, and nobody knows what could happen in that game against Hoffenheim, as I mentioned, a side that is very, very rugged and could really give you some trouble in this one. Both sides come, of course, with their injuries. We all know that Bayern's still missing Tolisso, Alphonso Davies and Goretzka for this one. On Saturday as well, it's Union Berlin versus Stuttgart. I think this might be a perfect opportunity for Union Berlin to win, to get some 3 points on their books against Stuttgart, a side that is in free fall mode at the moment, and of course 22 points at the last bottom from the table. Stuttgart only won 1 game out of the last 9 in the Bundesliga, which is a real shame. Of course, they lost 6 out of those, and definitely look like a side that is set and, very, very much groomed for relegation to these 5 Bundesliga. Augsburg Mainz is not going to be played, as I mentioned. Freiburg is going to be playing Wolfsburg, and on paper I think I would favour Freiburg for this one. I feel that they are in a better form than Wolfsburg are, easily proved by the stats. I think Freiburg lost 2 out of the last 8, while Wolfsburg I think won almost the other way around. They only won 3 out of the last 8, and it looks like Freiburg might find this a perfect opportunity as well at home to get some seriously important 3 points. They missed out on winning against Leipzig away. They lost in the 90th minute after staying basically defending for the whole game and then conceding late. Borussia Mönchengladbach playing against Hertha Berlin. It's basically a game of Who can avoid the relegation quicker? I think Gladbach are 13th at the moment, Hertha on the playoff spot 16th with 23 points. This seems like a game that both sides are urgent to victory, but I would favour Borussia Mönchengladbach because I think they have a more potent attack just above Hertha Berlin in terms of stats. 34 goals scored, while Hertha Berlin have only 26. Leverkusen against Köln, this should be a very interesting one. I would keep an eye on that because of our Tunisian boy Elias Khedi, and Köln are really doing good this season, I would say. They punch in above their weight. I mean, they already survived relegation. They don't have that trouble in the back of their mind, but I think they will look for improving their position on the table, albeit the last couple of results they had are not exactly helping. A draw against Greuther Fürth and a loss at home against Hoffenheim doesn't really set them to the best of moods. Borussia Dortmund playing against Arminia Bielefeld on Sunday as well. I think this should be, 3 points for Borussia Dortmund, but we all know that you cannot really trust Borussia Dortmund at the moment. They're not really that guarantee to victory in any game whatsoever. The last couple of results prove it. I think a draw against Augsburg in the Bundesliga, as well as being eliminated, of course, before that in the Europa League. Even the performances where they win, I think, aside from the last couple of results against Gladbach 6-0 and Union Berlin 3-0, it has been an unconvincing season as far as Borussia Dortmund are concerned. Yes, they are second, but it never felt that they are close to Bayern enough, albeit, I mean, at any point the rest of the season they could still reduce the gap and Bayern could still slip. Frankfurt play against VfL Bochum, and Eintracht Frankfurt, of course, who just defeated Betis in the Europa League. I think they have all the momentum in the world to defeat Bochum, albeit Bochum are a side that can cause troubles, and I know that firsthand as a Bayern fan. So I think Frankfurt will really have a bit of a hard game, albeit I still favour them to win. And lastly, of course, it is Greuther Fürth hosting Leipzig. Leipzig, who are on the ascendancy, they qualified to the Europa League quarterfinal automatically, so they didn't have a game in the midweek to exhaust them and to take out of their resources. So I think this is an easy win, and it should be an easy win for Leipzig, and probably Christopher Nkunku will get a couple more goals to continue his great form. The Bundesliga table is like this: Bayern Munich 59 points, 50 for Dortmund, 45 for Leverkusen, 43 for Hoffenheim, 41 for both Leipzig and Freiburg, 37 for Union Berlin, 36 for Köln, 34 for Mainz, with 2 games in hand, of course, for them, 34 for Frankfurt, and 32 for Bochum, 31 for Wolfsburg, 27 for Gladbach, 26 for Augsburg, 25 for Bielefeld, 23 for Hertha Berlin at 16th, 22 for Stuttgart at 17th, and Fürth at the bottom with 14 points. And let's round it up by talking about the Serie A, of course, and it is round 29 of the Italian top flight. This week it starts on Saturday with Salernitana playing Sassuolo, Spezia against Cagliari, and Sampdoria hosting Juventus, Milan, Empoli, Fiorentina versus Bologna. On Sunday, Hellas Verona, Napoli, Atalanta, Genoa, Udinese, Roma, Torino, Inter, and Lazio playing Venezia. That is on Monday to round things off. And the musical chess game, I suppose, will continue, of course, at the top of the table. 3 points between the 3 sides of the table, at the top of the table. But I think Inter Milan have a little bit of advantage, I would say, because of the game in hand. They play against Torino. It's a tough game away from home for them. But at least probably they'll get momentum out of the last couple of results they had, particularly the performance against Liverpool, albeit the end result and the final sort of verdict was not that good for them because they eventually were eliminated from the Champions League. But I think they will take big pride in performing that good at Anfield against Liverpool and really taking the game to them. They will take that back in the league, of course. Facing a side like Torino, who could be tough to beat. I mean, but they're not exactly the best form possible, but I think they're really tough to beat. And you really can't believe that Inter Milan's last 5 games in the league have gone this way. A loss against Milan, a draw against Napoli, a loss against Sassuolo, and a draw against Genoa before getting the victory over Salernitana. It's a really rough period. It was a rough period, I think, for Inter Milan, but the last couple of results, as I mentioned, probably will restore some faith in the Inter fans that Simone Inzaghi can take their side to the Serie A glory again this season. Speaking of Milan, of course, they play against Empoli, and I think after a good win in the after a good win after a good win, or a couple of good wins, I think, for them against Napoli in particular. The last win was really important to give them that top spot on the table. I think they will try and make that up against Empoli. They don't want to They don't want Empoli to spoil their party. I mean, Empoli are not exactly the side to do it. You don't expect them to do it. They haven't won a game in like God knows how long. Like, they haven't really won a game in a long period. They won, or they lost 4 of the last 10 of the season, which is horrific, I would say, as far as Empoli is concerned, and that is no surprise, and it surprises me actually that they are still only 13th on the table and they're not sliding down the relegation zone. Again, 3 points, I would say, for Milan there. Napoli, who play Hellas Verona away from home. This is going to be a very tough game for Napoli. Hellas Verona are a really good side. Attacking wise, they're stronger actually than Napoli. They're actually stronger than Juventus, Napoli, and Atalanta. Atalanta were a side well known for being offensively strong. They're stronger than them. Verona, they're stronger in terms of offensively wise. They're stronger than 5 of the 7 sides above them on the table, which is really ridiculous stats. Or actually 5 of the 8 sides that are above them on the table, which is really ridiculous stat to think about for Hellas Verona. Of course, they have a player like Giovanni Simeone, who's really pulling all the strings in attack for them and doing really well this season. But again, this should be 3 points for Napoli unless something happens in that one, which is very possible against a side like Verona, as I mentioned, a side that's very rough and rugged that could give any side in Serie A trouble for their game. And of course, Juventus playing Sampdoria. I think they're still in the battle for the top 4. They're still heavily involved in that. Maybe they will be involved in the title race. Who knows? If a couple of results go their way for the other opponents, of course, in the league, maybe we can see Juventus, being involved in the title picture. Albeit that's far from their reach at the moment. But only one can dream, I suppose, if you're a Juventus fans. Elsewhere is Atalanta playing against Genoa. As I mentioned, they need to win the next couple of games that they have, and wait and hope for Juventus slip up in order for Atalanta to catch that top 4 spot back. Udinese playing against Roma. Of course, Roma are still involved in that battle as well, but I think they're far from that. And you have, of course, Fiorentina playing Bologna, and Lazio playing Venezia on Monday, as well as Fiorentina, Bologna, and Spezia versus Cagliari. The Serie A table is like this: 60 points for Milan at the top, 1 game in hand for Inter, but they're 58 points. Napoli 57, Juventus 53, 47 for Atalanta and Roma, 46 for Lazio, 43 for Fiorentina, 41 for Verona, Sassuolo 39, 34 for Torino, 33 for Bologna, 32 for Empoli, 29 for Udinese, 26 for Sampdoria and Spezia, 25 for Cagliari, 22 for Venezia, 18 for Genoa, and 15 for Salernitana at the bottom. That's it for this episode. Thanks for watching / listening. I was your boy, the HD of the PSP. Like, share, comment on the YouTube version, subscribe to the YouTube channel, enable notifications to receive all the updates from these episodes and all the content on the channel, and of course follow us on social media and listen on any podcast listening platform. And until next time, I'll be seeing you soon. Goodbye. Behind closed doors, I'm a fool for your love.